We're located at the offices of Fisher and Phillips, 140 South Dearborn, Suite 420, Chicago, Illinois, 60603 for a deposition in the matter of Karen M. Kalenborn versus John M. Smith, Homemakers Roads, Inc., case number 2003 C1148 in the Northern District of Illinois, Eastern Division. The witness today is Mr. Patrick Dennis Paul. Mr. Paul, my name is Mike Lischke. I'm a notary public and employee of Texan Court Reporters. Would you please raise your right hand for the oath? Solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Attorneys, please state your appearances.
Jay McFettridge on behalf of the defendant.
Andrew Cohn on behalf of the plaintiff.
Mary Pryor.
Okay, also present is Mary Pryor of Rhodes.
As corporate representative.
Okay, we can proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Paul.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
Good.
Please state and spell your entire name for the record.
Sure. First name is Patrick, P-A-T-R-I-C-K. Middle name Dennis, D-E-N-N-I-S. And the last name is Paul, P-A-U-L.
Let the record reflect that this is the deposition of Patrick Dennis Paul, taken pursuant to notice and agreement between the parties. In addition, let the record reflect that this deposition is being taken pursuant to the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, the Federal Rules of Evidence, and any applicable local court rules. Mr. Paul, have you ever given deposition testimony before?
No.
Okay. Have you ever given testimony in a forum such as a court, such as the EEOC, if you're familiar with that, Illinois Department of Human Rights, or any other forum?
No.
Now, yesterday the deposition of Mary Pryor, who's also in the room today, was preceded, correct?
Correct.
And were you here during that entire deposition?
Yes, I was.
Okay. A lot of today obviously will be repetitive from yesterday, but I'll still go over some of the ground rules, etc., that we went over yesterday, okay?
Okay.
Again, when you're giving testimony, we ask that you give verbal answers and answers that can be articulated in a way that when they're written down you can understand them. And what I mean by that is or a sounds just like that. It's written down just like that. So if the answer is yes, try to respond with yes. If it's no, try to respond with no. And if it's any other way, try to respond in a narrative form. Okay? You can use hand gestures and nods of the head and everything like that, but that can't be your sole answer because the court reporter needs to take that down. Okay?
Okay.
Also, as we talked about yesterday, we'll try, and the court reporter will try and probably tell us all since we're not to talk over each other because it's hard for him to take that down. So on those occasions that we do, we might have to repeat ourselves, okay? If there's a question that you don't understand or you want me to repeat or rephrase, just ask me to do so and I will do that for you. Okay?
Okay.
Is there any time, if at any time during the deposition you want to take a break, just please let me know. We'll take a break. I only ask the courtesy of you allowing me to finish the train of thought or the line of questioning that I'm on at the time.
Okay.
What is your address?
Well, hold on. Do you need that? You didn't ask her that. And we
I know.
haven't,
I just want to make sure as long as you make a representation for the court that whenever we would need these people, whether they stop working at your company or not, you will provide us with
I will make that
addresses and
representation.
information. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yeah, no problem
And
at
if you
all.
you'll understand that she would, if you for some reason would leave the company
Correct.
at any time, that she'd be allowed to provide your address to me.
Sure.
At that point, is that okay?
That's fine.
Let's talk about Homemakers. How long have you worked for them?
2.5 years.
Can you tell me, to the best of your knowledge, when you started?
August 20th, 2001.
Where did you work prior to Homemakers?
Home Life Furniture.
That Sears unit, or was it not Sears
At that time, it was not Sears.
How long did you work for Home Life?
They were in existence for 2 years, so that was 2 years.
Oh, the entire time they were in existence, you
Correct.
worked for them.
Right.
And prior to Home Life,
Sears, Roebuck and Company.
furniture departments.
Correct.
And how long did you maintain jobs with Sears?
I had various jobs with Sears, but I was with them for 27 years before I went with Home Life.
What was the final position you had before departing Sears Furniture?
Sears Furniture?
Or Sears?
Well, I was in sales when I left Sears to join Home Life.
You were a salesperson?
Correct.
When you left to go to Home Life, what position did you obtain when you started at Home Life?
Operations manager at the Schaumburg location.
Can you explain to me what that position means?
Operations manager controls all the budgeting, pays all the bills, maintains the files, records. We take care of anything that is a non-sale issue, and also sales issues.
HR issues, human resource
Mhm.
issues?
Sure.
Did you do any investigations into HR issues when you had Home Life?
No, I did not.
Who did at Home Life? What department?
Oh, it would have been under my jurisdiction, but I didn't have any issues that came up.
Were you above human resources when you were at Home Life?
No. The human resource department was at their corporate offices in Itasca.
Did you receive training on harassment and discrimination when at Home Life?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Managerial training,
Correct.
which was different than the training that the average employee population would have?
At that time, no. Home Life had one program for any harassment issues, and it was relayed through the store manager, operation manager, to the sales staff.
Well, how did you receive at Home Life your training with respect to what you do if an employee comes to you with harassment or discrimination?
We received manuals. We received basically training manuals that we had to review, and there was a small quiz on it, and we had to submit that back to the HR department.
And those manuals to you as a manager would be different than the information that would be received by the general employee population?
No.
So they would receive the same manuals you would receive as to how to deal with it, a
We
complaint once it's
use the
obtained?
manuals as a training tool for the subordinates.
And did those manuals, though, contain information as to how you as a manager had to respond to the complaints?
No, that was a separate instruction sheet.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
Right.
Did you get a separate instruction sheet as a manager?
Yes.
Okay. And those separate instruction sheets would guide you as to how to deal with complaints of harassment or discrimination?
Correct.
And those were different than what the general employee population would receive?
Sure.
How much actual training did you receive at Home Life on the harassment and discrimination issues?
Say 8 hours. About 8 hours, if you want to break it down by hours.
8 hours?
Correct.
And was that like a classroom type structure? Thank you very much, Mary.
Yeah, it was. Basically, we had a question and answer period after going over what harassment is, should be considered, that type of thing.
And then you passed a quiz?
Correct.
And you left Homemakers because Home Life because Home Life closed down?
Then went bankrupt. Correct.
And you started at Homemakers?
Correct.
How long was the gap in time between Home Life and Homemakers?
Home Life actually closed their doors on July 11th. I worked in their corporate offices for a few weeks. Then I started with Homemakers on August 20th, but I actually had vacation time, so I really didn't have a gap in employment. So it was only actually about a week.
Okay. It was short, whatever it was.
Short-lived, yeah.
Now, you started on Homemakers at 8/20/01?
Correct.
When did you apply to Homemakers?
About a week prior.
Roughly the 13th or so?
It would have to be.
Who did you apply to?
Mark Summerhour.
What was his position? Was that division manager?
Division manager. Correct. Same position he has right now.
And you interviewed with Mark?
Correct.
And you said you filled out the application on 8/13/01. Did you take any sort of drug testing or anything like that?
Yes.
Did you do that testing before you actually were hired?
Correct.
To the best of your knowledge, that was a prerequisite to being hired?
Correct.
To the best of your knowledge, did that ever change at Homemakers as long as you knew?
No.
Was there a job open at the time you applied?
I believe so.
How did you know about a job opening at Homemakers?
Actually, I didn't. I just took a chance that they might be hiring.
And when did you first find out they had? Actually, what was your first position? With
At Homemakers, sales manager at the Downers Grove location.
And when did you first determine they had a sales manager position open at that location?
When I talked to Mark Summerall.
On the 13th?
It had to be around there.
And when did you actually get hired? Meaning, when did they tell you you were going to be hired?
Well, the 20th being a Monday.
It's a Monday?
Mhm.
Okay.
It probably was the previous, preceding Friday or Thursday. So report in on Monday.
So your first actual day was the 8/20/01?
In the store, correct.
Okay. What happened during that 8/20/01 day when you got to Homemakers?
I introduced myself to Mary Pryor, who was at that time the store manager there. And then we went over the floor. We looked around. She showed me the layout of the floor, and then we started discussing procedures and what we had to do.
Was that the first day you ever had time to discuss procedures?
Correct.
Okay. So between 8/13 when you applied and 8/20, you hadn't discussed store procedures, policies, anything?
No.
What procedures did you discuss in 8/20/01?
At that time, we were discussing the what's called the UPS system, and that, if you're not familiar with it, what that means is that in a commission sales environment, we'll have at any time, say, 5 salespeople, and each salesperson has to have a greeting or an up as the customer comes in the door. If you've got 3 salespeople, then you've got 3 positions waiting for 3 customers to come in.
What, besides the UP system, what else did you discuss on the first day?
Basically, the UP system, at that time we were going to reorganize and get a UPS position because the Heilig Myers didn't have an UPS desk at the front door. She was setting me up in a office area that I could have a desk and a work area. Introduced me to some of the sales folk that were in that day, and just acclimated to the whole surroundings.
Any harassment or discrimination training that day?
No.
When was your first harassment or discrimination training with Homemakers?
It was in the fall
Of 01?
of 01. It'd have to be sometime in October. I don't know the exact date. Being new with the company, and at that time Rose was reorganizing the Homemaker stores, myself and 2 other individuals went down to Atlanta for a 2-day seminar on sales training, company policies, computer systems, so we could relate and retrain the salespeople at the Homemakers locations.
So it was a training across the board, it just wasn't harassment or discrimination?
Correct. It was all company procedures and, as I called it, the rules of the roads.
How
But,
long was the training with respect to the
it was a 2-day seminar.
With respect to the harassment and discrimination, how long was the training?
Ooh. I really couldn't pinpoint it because we did cover a lot of issues at that time.
Did you receive any documentation?
At that time, we were handed training manuals and handbooks. We all got a revised copy of the employee handbook.
What about managers' training documentation with respect to dealing with harassment and discrimination?
It might have been covered, but I don't remember it being a specific point or topic.
Do you recall what they trained you with respect to how to deal with complaints of harassment or discrimination?
No, I don't remember.
Where would you look to find out how to deal with a complaint of harassment or discrimination after you were provided with this training in the fall of 01?
In the procedures handbook.
Is there a special procedures handbook for managers?
At that time, there wasn't. There was just a procedure handbook for the whole store. It was very large volume. Since then, they've revised it, and now there's operations manual, manager's manual, office manager manual, human resource manual, and all those will have the different issues in them. So you'd have to go to the topic you needed.
Do you know, you said you were given this training sometime in October of '01,
Mhm.
correct? Do you know if it was after the 10th of October?
Yeah, it was late in the month.
So it was after Karen Kalenborn had already departed from the store.
Correct.
Prior to Karen Kalenborn departing from the store, can you point to me any managerial training information for dealing with sexual harassment and discrimination that you had access to at Homemakers?
Just the Rhodes manual.
I'm going to show you what was marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 44 yesterday in the Mary Pryor deposition.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think you have a copy in front of you. You have a whole stack of documents.
See that, yes. 44?
Yes. Is that the document you're referring to, that you had access to?
This is actually the handbook that the employees get upon hiring. Every employee, we review this with them.
Okay.
And that these paragraphs are read to the employee. If there's any infraction of that, then I could go further into the actual manual, the managerial manual that tells me step 1, 2, and 3.
Let me ask you, first you said you read certain things to the employee?
I would read the whole handbook. When we had a new hire,
Okay.
I would go page by page on their first day and read read the whole thing to them. And then on the back page of this, there's a questionnaire. If they've gone through this, they will sign and date it.
Now
Then
you say-
the employer would keep this copy for their own reference.
You say there's an actual manager's manual
Mhm.
that existed at the time?
That is.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
Where would that be kept?
In the manager's office.
Can you tell me what it looked like, when you first saw it?
It's a binder. It's 6 to 8 inches wide at the rings. Normal binder, 9 by 12 pages, 8.5 by 12, whatever.
In a binder? In
Correct.
the manager's office, meaning Mary Pryor's office at this
Correct.
time?
Yes.
When was the first time you paged through that manual?
Not until after I left the Downers Grove store.
So when was the first time that you actually had a chance to page through the manual then?
It would have to have been after March 21st, 2002.
So in other words, the first time you paged through that manual was when you were at a different store?
Correct.
Okay. What store were you at when you paged through that manual?
Naperville.
Would I be correct in saying, though, that you had actually physically seen the book in Mary Pryor's office when you worked at Homemakers in
Correct.
Downers Grove?
Yes.
Where in the law office was it located?
It was in her office. Behind her desk there was a bookshelf.
What was it called?
Rhodes University? Was it Rhodes? It has a Rhodes logo on it. It doesn't say Homemakers. It was a Rhodes volume.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if it's called Rhodes University, Rhodes Instruction Manual. I'm not really sure. Commonly known as the Rhodes Bible, which would be an easier description of it.
And what color was it?
It's a white binder with red lettering.
What was the occasion on 3/21/02 that you had to look through that binder for the first time?
We had set up the new store in Naperville. They said, oh, here's all your manuals. I start going through it to see what was in it, to familiarize myself with some of the things opening a new store that I might be responsible for.
So the first time you looked at it, it wasn't for purposes of harassment or discrimination?
No.
Did you ever have an occasion after 3/21/02 to look in the binder at the harassment or discrimination portion of it?
No need to.
Do you know if there is one?
No, I don't.
I don't recall getting one of these in the course of discovery. That's why I'm asking you all these specific questions.
Okay.
Okay? I'm not trying to test what you actually remember or not. I just wanted to make sure so I can now get it if there's such a manual exists, because I don't believe I've been provided with this.
I understand.
Okay.
Sure.
But as you sit here today, though, you're actually not sure if there's a
A section on human, I'm not sure.
on human resource issues like harassment or discrimination.
My focus at that point to go into that manual was to recheck inventory, keeping units, receivings, inventory procedures, basically.
Let's talk for while you were at Homemakers. First of all, why don't you tell me when you left so I know what kind of time frame we're talking about?
Left
The Homemakers in Downers Grove.
March 21st, 2002.
Oh.
Well, March 20th, because yeah.
Okay, so from August 20th, 2001 to March 20th, 2002 was your tenure at the Downers Grove store.
Correct.
Did you have any other training other than what you've gone over at the Downers Grove store? Period. I don't care if it's discrimination, harassment, you've gone the UPS system. You said in the fall of 2001, probably sometime in late October, you received general training on a 2-day seminar.
Correct.
In Atlanta. Any other training while at the Downers Grove store?
No. Formal training? No.
Informal training, you're just talking about experience on the job?
Correct.
While you work?
Correct.
During the time period you were at Homemakers Downers Grove, how many investigations were you involved with respect to human resource issues?
A little clearer.
Sure. Did you consider Karen Kalenborn's matter a human resource issue that she was bringing to the attention of Homemakers?
I didn't specifically say that in my mind, oops, this is a human resource issue. I just looked at it as a very serious conflict.
Was that a personnel issue, would you say, at least?
Correct.
Okay. How many personnel issues or investigations into personnel issues were you involved in when you were at the Downers Grove store?
At that time,
Yeah.
just Karen Kalenborn.
Wait, I mean, when you say at that time, do you mean, I think he's asking for your
At the
tenure,
Downers Grove store.
After Karen Kalenborn.
Oh, after Karen.
Right.
Oh, eh.
Only at the Downers Grove store right now.
Okay. It would be hard to pinpoint a number, but on a weekly basis, there would always be territorial or disputes between salespeople in the respect of, was that my customer, that was your customer. They were in here last week Tuesday, and you sold them the furniture.
Okay, but up to the point of Karen Kalenborn, when she left, which I think we've agreed has been October 10th of 2001, hers was the only one you were involved in, up to that point.
Correct.
Okay. When was the first one after Karen left that you started becoming involved in what you call as territorial issue disputes?
I can't remember how soon it would have been after Karen had left. There could be a dispute any day of the week.
Were there any investigations and personnel issues that you were involved with that you documented? Meaning put in writing?
Right, not until later in the year, January, February. You showed an example yesterday. That was about it.
January, February 2002?
2002.
Okay. So the first time you recall putting anything in writing or documenting regarding a personnel issue would be in January or February of 2002?
Correct.
Did you document anything, and I know we went over at length yesterday, I'm sorry we're going to have to go over at length today with regards to what happened with Karen Kalenborn in that investigation, but did you document anything at that time with respect to Karen Kalenborn or Mario Cordero?
No.
Let's go back to your general position. You were a sales manager.
Correct.
When did that change?
In March of 2002, when I transferred to the Naperville location.
So the entire time you were at Downers Grove, you were sales manager?
Correct.
How many people were under you?
No. At that time, we had in excess of 20 salespeople. Office staff, at least 30. If
You weren't
consider-
responsible for office staff?
No, but they were basically under, if the office manager wasn't in place,
Okay.
And they had a situation where I needed some assistance. It was up to me to help them out with it.
So you were the default, so to speak,
Correct.
manager if
Right.
the office manager was not in.
Correct.
So typically you'd be in charge of 20 people, at times maybe up to 50.
Up to 30, I think. is what
30.
you said.
Oh, it's not 30 additional to the 20.
No,
Okay.
no, total.
Okay. So it's 10 additional office people.
Correct.
What were your duties as sales manager?
Oh, I think of that. I mean, sales manager basically is responsible to maintain the production records or the records of sales, coaching, updating new merchandise information, maintaining the sales staff, customer disputes, customer contact, resolving customer issues.
Bless you.
There's a myriad of things. All from anything that would have to do with the sales staff and related to customers.
So bless you.
Ugh. Sorry.
Yes, sir. So as sales manager, basically responsible for the sales staff and making sure that all their production is up to the standards and retraining, new product introduction. We have weekly meetings updating the sales staff on what's new, what's happening, what's discontinued.
Did you discipline sales staff?
If needed, sure.
Is that what the coaching is that you're talking about?
Correct.
Coaching is just a form of discipline.
Correct. Can be.
And customer disputes, would that also come under, I think you said that's under your purview.
Yeah, and customer disputes also can mean if a customer calls in and said, well, my furniture was delivered and it's the wrong size or the wrong color, customer might call and say, I bought my furniture, it was delivered yesterday, and now your ad's in the paper. It was up to the sales manager in lieu of management to resolve that with the customer. It's not just
Personnel issue.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be.
It could be the customer having a dispute or a conflict with the salesperson, or it could just simply be the customer not
Dispute with-
liking the furniture or having a problem with their furniture.
Correct.
So you covered a gambit of things
Correct.
in your job. Did you have the authority to charge someone back, to charge a salesperson back, meaning a commission? A sale went wrong or something like that, can you draw back the commission you would pay to that salesperson?
Oh, yeah, I could.
Yes.
Sure. Sure.
Is there, I don't know if you even have this in this type of store, is there such a thing as a demotion?
Not in sales staff.
Okay.
You're a salesperson or you're not.
Can you terminate someone? Could you
Sure.
terminate someone?
Correct.
Could you hire someone?
Correct.
Did you actually ever hire or terminate someone when you were down as growth?
At that time, we were rebuilding the sales staff. We hired quite a few. I personally interviewed and hired some folks.
Okay.
As far as termination for a discipline matter, no. I did have some people resign on their own volition because of unachievement of goals or whatever the decision was, moving on, retirement. Well, not retirement, but
Attrition.
we didn't. Yeah,
For different
we
reasons.
didn't have a retirement.
When you started as of 8/20/01, were you responsible for carrying Kalenborn?
As part of the sales staff, yeah.
Who else would have been in the store?
Mary,
So Mary,
myself,
yourself, who else would have been responsible for her?
the operations manager.
I don't know who that was.
I'm trying to remember.
Was that Mary Beth?
Mary
Mary
Beth.
Beth.
Mary Beth Butler.
Correct.
Anyone else?
No.
Who was the human resource personnel on site at the time Karen was at the store?
That would have been Louise.
Alkire?
Correct.
Alkire?
I believe so.
What was her position?
She actually is our personnel liaison, if you will. She handles all the personnel records, the forms. She maintains the payroll levels. She keeps all the records on personnel. functions, which is only actually part of her job.
When you say all records,
All personnel records.
well, if I remember correctly, when Mary testified yesterday, managers' records are kept upstairs.
Correct, but I thought we were speaking in sales.
Oh, right, that's okay. So you're just speaking directly of, she would have all the records or personnel files of all salespeople at her
Correct.
control.
Correct.
Okay, but just to clarify, if you're a managerial level staff, your records would be upstairs with the divisional people?
Correct.
So would it be true to say if you needed something from someone's personnel file, you could just ask Louise?
Correct.
I believe yesterday Mary said she had access to those personnel files, or a key or something to a locked cabinet. What about you?
I didn't have a key for the personnel.
So you would have to go and ask somebody?
Correct.
Okay. Were you prohibited in any way from seeing them if you wanted to?
No.
Is the only one, to your knowledge, who had keys to the personnel files Louise and Mary at the time Karen worked there?
Correct.
Not Mary Beth Butler.
She may have, I don't know. I never asked Mary Beth for a key.
What is the operations manager?
The operations manager takes care of all the non-selling functions in the store.
That's what we talked about, like you doing at Home Life, was it?
Correct.
Okay. When was the first time that you learned about any,
I don't think so.
okay, any
Might be any
issues,
issues.
personnel issues or complaints that Karen Kalenborn had been making, of any sort?
25th.
825?
Correct.
01.
01.
Can you please describe to me or tell me the circumstances of how you learned that information?
I was in Mary's office. I don't even remember what we were discussing. And Karen had walked in a little bit of a state of you can tell she was upset, and started going on about Mario Cordero.
So you were there previously talking to Mary?
Correct.
Okay. Who else was in the office when you were talking to Mary?
No one.
Okay. So when Karen walked in, would it be correct to say it was just the three of you?
Correct.
Please tell me what was spoken by all the parties then at that meeting.
When Karen came in again, she was she was upset, and she addressed Mary. She didn't address me at that time because I was sitting off in a chair in front of Mary's desk, somewhat like that. And she came in from behind me and started talking about how Mario is bothering her. She was really upset because he won't leave her alone, and something's got to be done.
Was she crying?
She might have been. She cried a lot.
What else do you recall occurring during that conversation?
At that time, my first reaction was, whoa, you know. I looked at Mary, and Mary was looking at Karen, and there was just that brief second that I thought, wow, this is a shame. Because I didn't know Karen, I didn't know Mario. I was in position there 5 days. I knew their names. I really didn't have much history on either one of them, so what did I know?
And when you say your first impression was that this was a shame, explain it. I'm not sure I understand your meaning.
That a situation where an employee would be driven to this state, that she would be that upset about something Mario had said or done. Because she didn't get she just said, I'm tired of Mario, and something to the effect that he won't leave her alone. I'm going, okay, what's going on? That was my first reaction.
You take it seriously when you first heard it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I did.
How long did Karen stay in the room for?
I couldn't really say how long it was. Because my first thought in my head was, we've got to get to the bottom of this right away.
She left the office at some period of time.
Correct.
Did you or Mary say anything to her when she was in the office?
I tried to calm her down and console her, but I don't remember what I said word for word, but I did try to give her the impression that we were that I was taking it seriously, and that, we were going to find out what's going on. And I did not, at that point, know if Mary had any history or what was going on. It was just like, what is this girl saying?
You don't recall specifically what you said to console her at the time?
No,
correct?
no.
Did she stop crying if she was crying?
She did calm down for a bit. And I believe that was the day that she was so upset. She wanted to leave, but she was afraid to leave the store alone. And that's when we asked the two young ladies, or women, to escort her. She was that adamant.
Tell me what happened with respect to that part of the conversation.
I really don't remember, because it was like, when a situation like this happens, you first start gathering your thoughts, thinking, what's going on? Okay. And again, I'm new in the store, I don't know these folks. And I'm thinking, okay, we've got to get this settled out. She was the one that was really saying, I don't want to stay here, I've got to go home, but I'm afraid because he's bothering me. And at that point, I didn't know what bothering meant. Bothering is a rather general term.
Did you ask her?
No.
Why not?
Basically because of her state. And the way she directed her statement to Mary, because she didn't direct it to me.
Did she appear to be faking this to you?
Not really.
I mean, did you form that impression at
No,
the time?
at that time, no. I thought, well, we've got a problem.
And at some period prior to the time she left, she indicated to you she doesn't really want to stay in the store, but she's afraid to leave because he may do something to her?
She didn't want him following.
Had she mentioned that he had been following her before?
No, not to me. She just mentioned it that way.
Did you ask if, at the time, if he had been following her?
No.
But you realized that was a concern of hers, that he might follow her?
Right.
Who asked for, you mentioned two other women followed her out to her car?
Mm-hmm.
Who
You have to
asked?
say yes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
No
Yes.
problem.
Yeah, yes, I mentioned that.
Who asked for these women to walk her out to her car?
I believe Mary actually contacted the ladies and asked them if they'd walk around.
How did she do that?
Page on the phone.
So while Karen, you, and Mary were in the room, Mary picked up the phone and paged these two women.
Page, probably one of them at least, because you don't do a double page.
Okay. So she paged the women to the best of your knowledge, and then they came into the room?
Correct. I left the room. When they came in, I was not in the room.
You had previously left?
I walked out of the room, and that's when the two gals came in, escorted her.
You were there, though, for Mary to page them?
I believe so.
Okay. And all it was who come to the office, do you recall?
No, I don't.
Anything else besides please come to the office?
No, I don't remember.
And you were not there for the conversation after you left the office as to what happened with regards to what Mary would have said to these women?
Correct.
You do know, though, that those women actually walked her out to her car?
I believe they did. Yeah.
Did Karen ask for those women to walk her out to your car?
I don't remember.
Or do you believe it was Mary's suggestion to have someone walk her out to her car?
I don't remember.
But you do know, you have personal knowledge of seeing Karen leave the building with these two women?
No, I didn't see them leave. I was told that the two gals walked her to her car. I didn't see them physically.
Who told you that?
Mary did.
Was there any other conversation as you sit here today that you can recall that happened between you, Karen, and Mary, or you and Mary, that day from the time period we've just been discussing?
I know that, and I don't know if it was that day, so I hesitate to say it was that day, but we did discuss the fact that we were going to have to talk tomorrow and get some information of what was going on.
But
I don't know if it was later in that day, it may have been, but it was one of those things that we wanted to react to in a hurry.
So that day or later that day?
Could have been.
Anything else that was discussed between the two of you, you and Mary, or you, Mary, and Karen, or you and Karen at that meeting or around the time of that meeting?
No. I know
is there anything that would
I'm
help?
trying to remember.
Is there a document that would help refresh your recollection if you looked at a document? Did you provide, because you didn't write anything, is
No,
that
I
correct?
didn't. No.
Okay.
I think we discussed verbally and didn't document it that, you know, we've got to interview Mario and talk to him to find out what the situation is.
What's the,
No, I know,
Yeah, okay.
we're gonna
I
go
mean-
over that now. But you're not sure if that was during that day or the
I
next
know
day?
it was that day, but I don't know if it was like within 5 minutes, within an hour, you know.
But when, as you left the room, you hadn't discussed that yet, to the best of your knowledge?
and
What-
the only reason I mentioned this is you said, is there any document that helped refresh your
Sure,
recollection?
absolutely.
That probably would.
When did she leave the store? What time was it?
I don't remember.
During the time Karen was actually in the office with you and Mary,
Mhm.
did Mary take notes?
I can't say I observed you taking notes.
Did you take notes?
No, I did not.
I don't mean to re-ask you, I know you said you haven't written anything down till
Correct.
January or February, but occasionally I'm gonna ask you anyways. At any time that day, did you observe Mary taking notes with regards to the Kalenborn matter and her complaints against Mario?
No.
When was the next time that day on the 25th that you and Mary or you and anyone else spoke with respect to the claims that Karen had made?
I don't remember.
Do you think it was that day, though, that you spoke to Mary again?
I believe so. Yeah.
Would it have been later in the day? Or
Probably later in the day.
And where would you have spoken?
In her office.
Do you have a specific recollection of talking later that day, or is it possible it was the
It's
following
possible.
day?
I don't remember, you know, the time frame. I'm trying to remember what evolved during the day. Whenever you have someone in a retail unit that is upset, especially an associate, you try and calm them down so there's not a display of a problem. For a customer, a customer doesn't want to see a sales associate or an employee in distress.
So, you think, though, sometime either later that day or the next day, you had another conversation with Mary?
Correct.
Well, either later that day or the next day, what did you discuss with Mary? Or where did you discuss it?
In her office.
Okay. So, did she call you in the office, or did you just go to her office?
I don't remember if she called me or not. At that time, it's not a structure. There wasn't a structure where I had to knock on the door and say I want to come in. I would just walk in and say, you know, are you busy, or you know, that type of thing. But I know that I was really concerned because I hadn't seen that type of display from any employee, whether it be at Homemakers or Home Life or even at Sears, where she was so adamant and upset about another salesperson or coworker.
So you were in the office with her at some point the next day or so.
Her being Mary.
Mary.
Thank you. And you had a conversation about this again.
I believe so.
Who
It's
else was present besides you and Mary?
just Mary and I.
Please tell me what occurred during that conversation.
We did have a follow-up conversation after Karen left, and I'm not sure if it was later that day. And at that point, we discussed the fact that we've got to interview Mario and find out if her accusations to him had validity.
What else was said besides that?
At that point, I don't remember. And it was something to the effect like, we got to get Mario in here and find out what's going on.
So it was a very brief conversation.
Correct. It wasn't an in-depth, you know,
Couple minutes?
even.
Not even?
Not,
Just
a couple minutes just said, you know, we got to get Mario.
when is the next time, besides later in the 25th or on the 26th when this conversation may occur, what is the next time that you had any involvement in what happened with respect to Karen Kalenborn's claims?
The next, and I don't know what the date was, but the next follow-up was when we called Mario into Mary's office to basically question him on the situation.
Was that within a few days of when Karen had complained?
Correct.
Who called Mario in?
I believe Mary.
What time of day was it?
Couldn't tell you. Midday. I have no recollection of the time.
Who was present besides you, Mary, and Mario?
It was just the three of us.
How long was the conversation?
Well, it could have been a half hour. I have no idea how long the conversation was.
Could have been 10 minutes.
10 to 20 minutes, sure.
Did you have any documentation with yourself at the time Mario came into the office?
No, I didn't.
Did you have his personnel file with you?
No, I didn't.
Did Mary have his personnel file with her?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you know if Mary had any documentation with her when he came into the office?
No, I didn't.
And I mean documentation obviously relevant to this matter.
Yeah, obviously.
During the meeting with Mario, did you observe Mary taking notes?
No, I can't say, I saw her taking the note, because my focus was on Mario, not on Mary.
Who asked questions?
Mary?
Tell me what occurred during this conversation. Who said what?
Mario came in the office, and Mary, asked him to sit down. He said, no, he says, I don't need to. And she said something to the effect of that Karen had made a statement, and we want to know what's going on, and she felt that he was harassing her. At that point, he became very agitated, very upset. He had this, look on his face like, what the hell are you talking about? He pulls out his cell phone. He said, that's all BS, Mary. He said, listen to this, and he popped on his cell phone. And there was a message on there, and I recognized the voice as Karen's, asking him to, basically telling him to sell her a lot of furniture. Her and her 10 kids have got a need for furniture, ha 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 ha. And he said, this is from Karen. Why would I bother her? She's bothering me. And he went on. He was really upset the fact that she would say this about him, because he was visually, I could see he was upset. And I was concentrating on watching him because, again, I didn't know this man. And after Karen accused him, I'm going, what is this guy? In my head. He comes in and he was visually upset. Now I'm thinking it's who is right. And again, I didn't know either one of them, well enough to judge that. And I'm going, now who is right? He's got this cell phone. She's saying that he's harassing her, and he's got this cell phone message that was obviously made before she mentioned in my presence that he was harassing, that she was calling him on his private cell phone. Most of the time, if you're in a sales relationship, you don't get people out your cell phone. And it seemed like, she had his cell phone number.
When you say most of the time if you're in a sales relationship, you don't give people out your cell phone? Why do you say that?
Well, first of all, most salespeople don't carry cell phones because they're costly, but why would Karen have the need to ask Mario for his number? Why would she have his phone number to begin with?
Is that the assumption you made?
Mm-hmm. Why does she have his number?
No, but you just said why would Karen ask him for his number?
I assumed she asked him for it, sure.
Okay. Is it possible that he gave her the number?
Well, it's possible.
Without her ever asking?
My first reaction was, why does Karen have his number? Why would she need his number?
Right, but it also, your assumption seemed to go a little the other way, that why would Karen have asked them?
Right.
And I'm saying, I assume it's equally reasonable that he might have simply offered the number.
Correct.
And did you find out the date that voicemail was sent?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
He played the message, but I don't remember. I didn't look at the cell phone. If the date is on there, he didn't say this was, so-and-so date. Her message didn't include a date or time.
Because would it have been relevant to you if you knew that she gave him that message within the first day or two of the employment at Homemakers?
No, because I didn't know what her date of employment was, nor his.
So it wouldn't have been relevant when that message had been sent?
It would have been relevant when it was sent, but it wouldn't be relevant to date of employment.
Fine, but would it have been relevant when it was sent?
No, I don't think so. Because it was after her complaint about him.
What was after her complaint?
His playing of the telephone message.
Right, but what if the message was sent 30 days before she complained? Would that have been relevant to you to know that?
Probably, yeah. I can't imagine anyone keeping a voicemail for 30 days.
What people do.
I'm assuming.
Did you at that point find out when she had started working there?
No, not at that point.
So he comes in the room.
Mm-hmm.
He first won't sit down.
Correct.
Did he ever sit down?
Never.
Did you ask him why won't you sit down, Mario?
Many of the salespeople, when they would come into the office, we'd say, why don't you sit down? No, that's okay. Most of the salespeople,
I'm just
Mario would
asking.
not sit down.
Okay.
He rarely would sit down. The only time actually I saw Mario sitting down would be when he was having lunch.
Had you called him into the office a prior time before this? I thought you said this is the first time you'd met him.
No, not the first time I met him. It's the first time that we responded to Mary's office.
Okay. Had he been in the office with you before this occasion?
On occasion, sure.
Because I thought you had mentioned that I really didn't know this man at all.
Correct.
By the time you had met him this first time.
This wasn't the first time I met him, but I didn't know his personality. I didn't know his selling habits.
Fair enough.
Because I'm in the store 5 days.
So he says to you, I don't want to sit down. He becomes agitated and upset.
He didn't become agitated and upset until Mary confronted him with Karen's claim that he was bothering him. Other than that, he was calm. He said, what do you need, Mary?
Absolutely.
And then after she described what Karen said is when he became agitated and upset.
And he said, this is BS.
Mm-hmm.
And
Correct.
he says, let me play you this phone message.
I don't say if he said, let me play you this phone message. He said, that's BS. She's calling me. He reached into his inner pocket, pulled out a cell phone, and played a message.
Did anything else transpire at that time?
Other than what he's already testified.
Oh, absolutely.
No, I know that at that time, after you left the office, Mary and I said, we've got to do some investigation to find out what's going on.
Who said that?
I don't know. I think it was just a general statement one of us made. That's because I was rather upset that the fact that this young lady comes in there claiming that this gentleman is harassing her, and he's got a telephone message that was obviously made prior to her complaint because she had gone home. She wasn't in the store. And I'm going, well, who's right and who's wrong? It's a he say, she say at that point, and I'm kind of open to which individual's right.
But you just said you were kind of upset by that, and you didn't even know when she sent the message.
I was upset at the fact that the situation would occur.
Because out of all fairness, it sounded like you were upset with her, because you said that she would come in and be so upset when she had previously sent him a message like that.
Well, I
But
was
you made
upset at the situation
Okay.
that this would occur. She's making a rather serious accusation in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
We talked to this gentleman who has a cell phone message that she previously sent to him in a teasing cutesy fashion that I'm going, well, wait a minute, if who's right and who's wrong? My mind at that point said, well, wait a minute, which of these folks are true?
But you at no time during the meeting determined or asked him to provide the date that message was sent.
No, I did not.
And is it within the realm of your understanding that people can have a good relationship one day and things can go very seriously wrong the next day in the workplace?
I imagine, sure.
I mean, have you ever had a situation or heard of a situation in your training or experience that some people who are friends in the workplace one day may harass someone else the next day or at some time thereafter?
And that could happen, and it has happened in the past, but generally in a sales situation, Annie's upset with Mark, let's say, and the next day they're buddies again. There's a lot, it's a very competitive selling, commission selling is very competitive, but most of the salespeople who are in commission sales don't really carry grudges to the point that they accuse each other of harassment.
But you did say before that you had never seen anyone as upset as Karen had been in all the other jobs you had worked.
I've not seen someone come in that state.
Okay.
Because she didn't walk in the room sobbing or anything. She walked in the room and said, Mary, I've got to talk to you. Then she broke down and said, Mario was blah, 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 and she started crying. And
Okay. Is there anything else that occurred during this meeting that you haven't told me about yet?
not that I can recall.
And then, was it after Mario left that you said to Mary or Mary said to you, we have to do some more investigation?
Correct.
what is the next time something happened with respect to this Kalenborn matter?
Ooh. I don't remember when the exact date was that something happened. I don't know. I don't remember.
What about just a week later, 3 or 4 days later? I'm not looking for an exact date.
Yeah, I know at that, after this conflict of stories, that's when I believe Mary and I said, something's wrong here. We've got to find out what's going on. And I believe right in that time period is when we went to Mark Summerhour and Dave and said, this situation was brought to our attention.
Would it refresh your recollection if I tell you that Mary's notes, and Mary testified yesterday, that was on September 10th of 2001?
It may have been, I don't remember.
So you have no...
I have
What
no...
happened? Screaming at someone else.
You said September 10th, and that may very well be. You have to realize in a retail situation, schedules aren't normal. They aren't, you might have a Monday through Friday date. It doesn't.
I'm just asking what you recall.
Yeah,
what you recall.
I don't recall the date. I do know, I can remember Mary and I both going up there and saying to Mark,
And it
red flag.
It could be also September 10th, but you have no way of knowing what the exact date was.
Correct.
You have none of your own notes or any documentation?
No, I didn't do any writing or notes at all.
Mary was... Excuse me. Let me reconfirm that. Did you have a diary, a notebook, a calendar where you just make little notes on that you could look to regarding this matter?
Not from that time period.
And I just want clarification. You don't still have it, or you didn't do it at that time period?
I didn't. But the only thing I do carry is a planner, and it'll tell me different events like in March 2004.
I don't want to go into your
But
calendar.
no, I'm saying I make little notes for myself.
Do you have...
John's training class. I don't keep these.
Okay, so you don't have that calendar for 2004?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Well, let's go about this date. This roughly September 10th that was
Early
talked
September?
about yesterday of 01. You said you and Mary went and talked with Mark Summerhour?
And Dave.
Okay. There's 4
Dave.
people?
We went up to locate Mark and Dave. Their offices were on the 2nd floor of the building, and we wanted to appraise them of the situation.
So it was you, Mary,
Mm-hmm.
Summerhour,
Mm-hmm.
Berger?
Yes, Berger, Dave.
Summerhour was the division manager for Homemakers?
Correct.
Meaning the manager in control of all the Homemaker stores?
Correct. In the Chicago market.
In Berger?
Is the district operations manager.
And that's the same list of responsibilities you talked about operations manager before, but he would be over all the Homemaker stores?
Times 7.
Do you know what time of day it was?
No, I don't. At that time, and we still do have varying schedules, I might start 9:30 in the morning, I might start 12:30 in the afternoon. It would have to have been when we were both present. So it had to be midday.
Where did you meet?
Mary and I went upstairs to to Mark's office.
Mark's office. And were all 4 of you in the office?
I believe so.
Was anyone else there?
No.
What did all the parties say to each other at that time?
I just remember saying that we did have an issue with this young lady accusing Mario of improprieties. And at that time, Mark said, well, then what you've got to do is interview anybody in the store who might have been a witness to it, document it, and see if we can get someone to either agree with or dispute the charges.
Sounds like you were the one apprising him of the situation with Karen.
We were both there, but I don't remember if, we both ran in and said, oh, Mark, what's going on? We worked in tandem, so it was...
Do you recall anyone during that meeting taking notes?
No.
How long was this meeting? Sounds brief again.
It wasn't more than 20 minutes.
Did Mary say anything during the meeting?
I believe she did. What she said word for word, I don't know, because I remember sitting there and Mark was basically saying, okay, this is what we should do to find out, where the truth is at.
Mark said, interview everyone you can.
Everyone who would have been present at the time they worked, everybody who would have been in contact with Karen and or Mario both.
What other instructions did he give you besides interview these people?
To document their if they do have if they were a witness to any impropriety, that they should document it and sign it.
That the witness should document and sign it?
Correct.
And it's your understanding that if they did not witness anything, they didn't have to give any sort of written document and sign
Correct.
anything? Anything else that was said during the meeting by Mark or Dave?
I don't remember.
Did Dave really speak?
I don't remember if Dave did or not. I think he was just in the room. I don't remember if he made any comments or gave any instructions.
Was any specifics given to them about what was being planned?